I felt that it is really a privilege to give this talk to this forum. And also, I just want to declare that I'm not a Buddhist scholar. Probably for me, the only qualification or I may have to give this talk is my mindfulness practice. And I was so fortunate and privileged to be guided and coached by most venerable Duiriagama Dhammajiva Mahatero. So therefore, I dedicate this talk to in respect of him. So having said that, I was just thinking whether there is a relevant sutta which goes with the title. And I found very interesting sutta. Now that is called Wilderness or the Aranya Sutta, where it is a nice story. The Devata meets the Buddha and asks a question that one day I saw a group of venerables who were meditating in the middle of the jungle under very rough conditions. They have one meal a day and they do not have any comfortable cushions or seats. They just sit under trees and meditate, but they are so radiant and it's so happy to see them. And they are so happy despite all these adversities that they are facing, the lack of food and all these things. They are so happy and radiant. And when this question is being asked from the Buddha's answer was that is mainly because of their mindfulness.
Sanath, I don't know, I have lost you. I don't know whether I can.
Yeah, I think his connection has gone. We'll just wait for him. He did mention that he was having a power cut, so perhaps it came early.
Mano, I think you should call him on his mobile phone. He may not be aware that it has happened.
Sorry about that, I got disconnected. So let me continue. I do not have the co-host status. Am I a co-host? Not yet. Can you make me a co-host?
Nati, can you make Dr. Mahawithanage a co-host again, because we lost connection? We can hear you clearly though, Sanath.
Okay. Right, I'm back.
Right.
So the story I was telling is that the Buddha's answer is that the key reason for them to be so radiant is that they do not worry about what has happened in the past. And also, they do not unnecessarily have fear about what is going to happen in the future. Because of that, they are so radiant. And also Buddha went on explaining that those who were sorrow for past unnecessarily and have fear about future, what's going to happen, etc., are people like who these green reeds cut, those have been cut under the hot sun. Now, if you really look at the societal context, you might have seen, as far as the Sri Lankan context is considered, there are many people who even a minor situation is enough for them to start a huge issue or a fight. Because what I found is that each and everyone is going through some sort of stress level or a background. Very last week, Venerable Chandraratna Thero very nicely explained the nature of the inner chatter. So kind of an inner chatter going on. Most probably the hopelessness about the future. Then something has happened in the past, etc. So that there's a kind of stress that always thinking. Now, when this situation happens, so many people, even probably you may have experienced when we were driving on the road, or when we're talking to someone else, people easily get into situations where very friendly discussions in a fraction of a second transform into big arguments and fights. Now, there was a nice word that I have very recently added to the dictionary, which is called doom scrolling. Doom scrolling is become a kind of a habit in our society these days, where people scroll down maybe YouTube or maybe Facebook and finding so many reasons to be unhappy. Now we are cultivating unhappiness. We are promoting unhappiness, so that I feel that this stress keep building up. Now this particular sutta, and which is related to the mindfulness, is one of the key interest or the key point where I started my biochemistry research on mindfulness. Now I will explain in a very simple language that there is a term called epigenetics. So epigenetics is beyond genetics. Now most of the time, our nature of our body, everything, it's actually coded by our genes. But the theory of epigenetics is that there are external environment changes expression of our genes. Now, one of the most popular theories, which is actually proven, is that the stress causing obesity. Now, this is becoming an epidemic around the world. Now, what happens is that these accumulation of this stress or the higher level of stress of the individual impacts. There are molecules called histones. The function of those hits, I'm just not giving a biochemistry lecture, but it's very simple. The function of this histone is basically to tightly pack DNA materials. And what happens is that when we expose to stress, or we have a higher level of stress, they basically impacts the methyl ends of these histone molecules, and because of that, DNAs are not tightly packed, and that actually switch on the gene expression of the gene to be an obese. Now the reverse is mindfulness. Now if you go to the internet and just type the epigenetics of mindfulness, that's a very interesting area of study. So I personally believe the science, maybe the basis for this wilderness sutta is actually the epigenetics of mindfulness. So that even the Buddha explained that when one practices mindfulness, how it impacts to her own physical body. So that's the beauty of the sutta I found. Now we have recently even started a clinical trial to see whether the practice of mindfulness is really beneficial for those who are undergoing colorectal cancer. So the colorectal cancer is a kind of a cancer which appears in the lower part of the bowel, which is one of the most devastating cancers. So what we are trying to do is that there is a gap of 4 months period after the registration, and then they go for the cancer surgery. So what we are doing is that during this 4 months of period, we are offering them a mindfulness practice module. And there's another group who have the age and sex match group where they are not going through that protocol, and then we are measuring the clinical outcomes after the surgery. So that's kind of the first research in the world so far to see the impact of mindfulness in the surgical outcomes of the patients who are undergoing colorectal cancer surgeries who are admitted to Colombo South Teaching Hospital. So while we are doing those research, one of my key interests is that how best we can manage our current status, current stress, so that we are more resilient to all the distractions. For that, I found a tool which we have validated to Sri Lankan context also. So today I just want this session to be a activity-driven session. So therefore I have 8 more minutes before the power cut. So then I will be shifting into my mobile phone. But before the power cut, I would like you to offer that tool, and let's do for the fun to assess our stress status. So then as far as then I know where I am. So this is a simple tool which has only just 14 questions. We are going to work together. I will share my screen and read each and every question. And then I invite you all to find a piece of paper and a pen. So it's a very simple tool that we are going to use. So let me share my screen. And while I'm sharing my screen, please find a pencil or a pen to do this tool. So now, yes, you all can. I hope you all can see the screen. And they do that is reach. So don't no one is at all. But then when you know where you go, have you do. So start I you to now for
Lost contact, I think, again.
sorry, I got disconnected again, but we can still be patient and continue. So this is actually the resilience. So let's go to that tool again. So I hope that you all have listed down all the questions from 1 to 40. So I will read each and every question, and during that, when I'm reading the question, your task is, if you go through the, let's do one question. Now, for example, in the last month, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly, which has happened right now? Even can't be scale, but sometimes happen very often. It is the last you in front 1 0. If very fun, your score will be right question. However, the first question is, in the last month, how often have you been upset because of some something that happened unexpected. We'll move to the second question. The last month, often have you felt in the last month, how often have you felt that you were unable to control the important things in your life? So your score should be something between 0 to 4. Question number 3. In the last month, how often have you felt nervous and stressed? You can put a value. Question number 4. In the last month, how often have you dealt successfully with irritating life hassles? So now this is a reverse order question. If it is never, number is 4. If it is very often, number is 0. Question number 5. In the last month, how often have you felt that you were effectively coping with important changes that were occurring in your life? Please mute your microphone. Question number 6. In the last month, how often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? Again, if it is never, number 4. If it is very often, number 0. Question number 7. In the last month, how often have you felt that things were going your way? If all the things happening the way you want, then put a number 0. Otherwise, it's something less than maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4. Question number 8. In the last month, how often have you found that you could not cope with all the things that you had to do? Now it is 0 to 4. Question number 9. In the last month, how often have you been able to control irritations in your life? Question number 10. In the last month, how often have you felt that you were on top of things? Question number 11. In the last month, how often have you been angered because of things that happened that were outside of your control? So how many of us were angry when I continuously getting disconnected? Question number 12. In the last month, how often have you found yourself thinking about things that you have to accomplish? Question number 13. In the last month, how often have you been able to control the way you spend time? Question number 14. In the last month, how often have you felt difficulties were piling up so high that you could not overcome them? Right. Now you have responses in front of each 14 questions, and now take few seconds and sum up everything, those responses. and see what the total score is. Right. This total score would be anything between 0 to 60. So let me share. So you don't need to share this story with anyone else because it's your personal value. But there are no cutoff values to say that you have a higher status of stress, or from this, anyone below this value is lower status. There is no such cutoff values. But the importance of having this, knowing this status is, I can show it to you a similar study. I have done a group of individuals where you can see their values are ranging from 19 to 46. Now your score may be anything between 0 to 60. So what does this higher value means? That you have a higher status of perceived stress. So a lower value means that you have a lower status of perceived stress. But the important thing of knowing your value is that now you can do this scale again another 1 month time, because if you really go through the question, it says that in the last month, and then you can assess the progress that you have made based on your practice. Now, one of the research I have done is that I have got a group of people where this is my center. It's a very small place where there are a few questions to people to come and sit. And then I introduce a module called 8-week mindfulness practice module. And then I assess their stress score before the practice. And then again, I assess the same thing after 8 weeks of the practice. And you can see their stress level has gone down by 28%. Now, if you keep on practicing, what would happen is that you can, in another 8 months, again, you can reduce, assuming the same trend will continue, there will be another 28% reduction. And again, there will be another 28% reduction and all these things. So these techniques, which have been actually learned by Most Venerable Dhammajiva Thero and which is widely practiced in Satipasala, is actually you can measure whether there's a tangible outcome or not. I mean, there are so many other, even if you practice any other meditation methods as well, you will see a significant impact. But in this research, we particularly use the teachings mainly from Nisarna Vane, Venerable Dhammajiva Mahathero's teaching. So one of the suggestions that I would like to do is that, which I did when I was a practitioner, very beginner, I used to assess my score every month. And then based on that, I used to adjust myself. I allocate my time. When my stress goes up, that is time I think that, okay, now I need to spend more time on mindful walking or mindful sitting. So when I see there's a good progress, then I continue with the same thing. So in time to time, this becomes the kind of a very practical and usable tool with which you continue to practice. And honestly speaking, this is a kind of a tool that actually really helped me to sustain my practice over a period of last 25 years, plus the other Kalyana Mitras that I have been associated with all the time. So my suggestion to you is that if you use this type of tool, you can easily measure what's happening, what's going on, and then you can make necessary adjustments. So why Sorry, my power cut starts. So I will be now joining from the mobile phone and will continue my talk, but I'm not in a position to on my camera because of the signal strength. But Madam, can you confirm that you can hear me clearly?
Yes, very clear, very clear. No problem.
Thank you.
Go on.
Yeah. So it's great that we have just completed our assessment just before the power cut. But let's continue with the rest of the things in my mind. So one of the things that I told you is that what is really impacting and what is really disturbing us is the kind of the stress that we are having in our minds that is mainly associated with the inner chatter. Now, that is actually, I found that a kind of an inbuilt nature of the human minds, because a lot of people, what they do is that when there are situations they can be happy, we tend to find reasons to be unhappy. Now, most Venerable Dhammajiva Thero is actually often an advisor, and he used to say that when you continue to practice mindfulness, you will always find a reason to be happy under any circumstance. And that is the transformation that one can see when they start practicing mindfulness. Despite any adversities, despite any difficulties that we go through in our life, despite all the issues that is happening out there, we still can find certain things, or at least one thing, to be very happy about the current status. And that really keeps us going. And that is because of that mindset or the attitude, what we see is that we see so many opportunities amidst all these adversities. Probably you might have seen this in the internet. There's a nice quote I always quote. It's by Sir Winston Churchill. I quote. He says that you can never let a good crisis go to waste. So that means that when there's a crisis situation or when there's a difficult situation, that is the time that you go out of the box and find innovative methods, find creative methods with which you will not only survive the current crisis or whatever the difficulties that you are going through, and also you will come out of these situations. So mindfulness is, I found this one of the most powerful tools with which we can build resilience because of various benefits that we have, that we can gain by practice of mindfulness. So therefore today I thought that it is more appropriate that we spend some adequate time for the practice of mindfulness. For that, I will be using a protocol actually I developed under the guidance of Most Venerable Dhammajiva Mahathero. See, this is a kind of a protocol that I always use when we practice mindfulness, which we call guided meditation. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you all to sit relaxedly on your chair and keep your both legs touching the floor and keep them in parallel. Please be kind enough to switch off your microphone. I think someone's mic is on, which is a bit distracting. And then keep your back straight without resting on your chair. And then slowly adjust your head and neck and find the most comfortable position to keep your head and neck. And also, you can keep your hands on your thighs. And now we are just about to observe the present moment. For that, I invite each and every one of you to let your eyes to close gently and slowly. Now we are sitting here relaxedly, comfortably, and see whether we can experience our pressure points. The way your legs are touching the floor, your hands on your thighs, your weight on your chair, your back straight but relaxed. Your head and neck is at the most comfortable position. Probably you can see from your mind or watch your body as if you are looking from the top. When we started off being conscious of our pressure points, which is happening right now, which is a present phenomena, you also started feeling some other activities which are happening right now in our physical bodies. See what else you can experience apart from your pressure points. See whether you can experience the rising and the falling of your abdomen, beating of your heart, rhythmic movements of your body, your pulse. Whatever you experience at this moment, just be conscious. Let these activities to happen and you be the observer. While you are sitting comfortably and relaxedly, having conscious of what is happening right now, sometimes you may find that your mind wanders. You may be thinking something has just happened, or you may be thinking something you have to do in future, or there may be stray thoughts in your mind. Whatever thoughts may be future, or maybe past, or maybe irrelevant, no sooner you identify them, let's not try to suppress them. Let's not entertain them. Instead of that, let's observe them as if we were observing and experiencing various pressure points in our body. The rise and fall of the abdomen, or the beating of your heart, without having any judgment. So this is called non-judgmental awareness. No sooner you have the attitude of non-judgmental awareness towards your thoughts, your stray thoughts, you will see that effortlessly this incessant stream of thoughts slowly reduces, and you always come to the present moment. With that, we will be understanding this new nature or another nature of our mind. That is where, even though mind wanders frequently, when we are conscious of what is happening in our minds, we see that it always comes to the present moment. So it is something like that in the morning we leave home to go to office, and in the afternoon we come home. So when the mind comes to the present moment or started being conscious of what is happening right now, just welcome your mind and just have the feeling that you are home. You are in the present moment. So whenever your mind wanders, you may apply the same technique, which is called non-judgmental awareness, or you can say perceptionless awareness. Whatever you call it, it is a situation where you are becoming just an observer. You're not going to do anything. We are just observing what is happening right now. Sometimes for a beginner, it may be quite difficult to be conscious of your thinking process. Sometimes your stream of thoughts may be so high, and you may be constantly wandering. In such situation, you may put a label, or you name that thoughts. You may just slowly contemplate if you want, thinking, or planning, or memorizing, or whatever the appropriate label you can put into that thought. So when you label those thoughts, you will see with that identification itself, your stream of thoughts slowly subsides and coming to the present moment. While we are trying to be in the present moment, sometimes there may be many situations you may hear sounds or a smell or even a thought itself will take you to a different situation or past or future, etc. So whenever it happens, let us continue to be conscious, non-judgmental, and with which you will always feel that you can continue to be in the present moment. When we are continue to be in the present moment and are capable of conscious of what is happening right now in our bodies, you will see that among all these activities happening right now, one or few activities are becoming prominent. The other activities are slowly fading away. You may see that your consciousness stays somewhere in your respiration process. It may be tip of your nose, or it may be your abdomen. Wherever you feel that it is becoming prominent, just keep watching what is happening over there. If it is the abdomen, you can watch the rise and the fall of the abdomen. If it is at your tip of the nostril, you can be conscious of the way in which the in-breath touches your nose, or the way you feel the out-breath. It doesn't really matter where your focus is in your respiration tract. What matters is by being conscious of that prominent activity. When we let our minds to settle one of these activities, now you will see that these activities are becoming subtle and becoming very clear to us. For example, you may clearly see how you feel the in-breath. If your focus is on the top of the nose, you will see the coolness. Or if it is the abdomen, you will see the rise of the abdomen. Similarly, you will experience the out-breath very clearly. You may experience the passing of air through your nose, and you may experience the warmth or the fall of the abdomen. Let those activities to be clear, and you continue to watch what is happening. Now, when we continue to observe, you may also should be able to identify there's a gap between the in-breath and the out-breath. There's a small pause. There's a small gap. So you can be conscious of that gap as well. The inhalation and the gap and the exhalation. So just be conscious of these key three activities which are prominent to us now. when we continue to observe that particular prominent activity, you may see that your mind can further and further refine it and find some subtle activities. Probably you may be able to identify the beginning of the rise, the sustaining of the rise, and the cessation of the rise of the abdomen. If it is your in-breath at the top of the nose, you may see the beginning of the in-breath, sustaining of the in-breath, and the cessation of the in-breath, and a gap before the out-breath. Similarly, the beginning of the out-breath, sustaining of the out-breath, and the cessation of the out-breath. So we are becoming more and more capable of fine-tuning our minds so that we are conscious of these sub-segments of the key activity. While we are trying to be conscious, sometimes you find yourself wondering, thinking that something about the past or future. So whenever it happens, it is natural. It is the common nature of your mind, that is to wander. But let's be conscious of this wandering mind, and with that consciousness itself, you will see you always come to the present moment. So that is the other nature of your wandering mind. So it is so easy to come to the present moment. So whenever your mind wanders, apply the technique and let's continue to watch, observe the present moment. Now it is very important that we keep our bodies still and straight throughout this session. So from this point onward, we are going to make a determination that we are going to keep our bodies still. So if there are any discomfort or any difficultiness in any part of your body, this is the last time to slowly adjust. It may be your claw, or it may be slight adjustment of your posture, and get rid of that pain. And let us continue to observe the present moment for a few more minutes. Now this has to be done by ourselves. So therefore, from this point onwards, I will stop guiding you, but time to time, I will ring the bell so that which are reminders to be in the present moment. So let's start experiencing the present moment awareness. We have nothing to do at this moment, just to observe what is happening. So let's enjoy having nothing to do at this moment. So let's start our practice. let us slowly open our eyes and conclude our session. Thank you very much. So that is a sitting session that we have done, and I found that guided technique is so useful and so powerful, as I have seen that I have made a good progress in my sitting session. So you can find a similar guided meditation session if you go to YouTube channel of Nisarnavanaya, where Dhammajiva Mahathero is also used to do this type of sessions. And it's really useful for us to gradually take our consciousness into different levels and experience the true nature of the present moment. So my suggestion is that the best way to cultivate resilience and be resilient amid adversities is to practice mindfulness. And then if anyone can spend at least 40 to 45 minutes a day, it may be walking or it may be sitting, I found that you can maintain a very high status of mindfulness throughout the day. And the third aspect, as I told you, one of our previous talks, is that you can practice mindfulness with the day-to-day activities. You can start right from the time that you are getting up from your bed. You can make your bed mindfully. You can brush your teeth mindfully. You can have your breakfast mindfully. And you can do all the activities throughout the day that you do mindfully, so that you will still have a lot of time to practice mindfully. So the whole objective of doing all these things is to ensure that you stay the entire day mindfully. And if you can come to that level, you feel the living is so easy, the life becoming so easy, and it's a great experience to live every day. So I used to say that when you complete your daily mindfulness practice, you earn your tomorrow. So if you want to earn your tomorrow, please practice mindfulness. So sometimes I miss my sessions because of various reasons, and I feel like that I haven't earned tomorrow yet. But that is a kind of a way in which that's motivating me to ensure my practice. So before we conclude, I just want to share another story. I think this is coming from Dhammapada. Honestly, I can't remember the verse or the verse, but the story is about an elephant who was actually a very old elephant who got stuck in mud and could not pull himself out. And this elephant, the old elephant, belongs to a king. And the king asked some wise people to get this elephant out from the mud. But it was so difficult because at that time we never had these boom trucks and all these things. And you know that if an elephant got stuck in the mud, the elephant itself has to come out of that. So this elephant was so old and could not pull him out from the mud. But then a wise minister advised the king to bring his army and then keep them around the lake and ask them to beat the war drums. And that reminded that elephant his younger time, the way he actually broke into the castles, etc., during the battles. And that invokes the energy, and with a great shout that the elephant came out from the mud. And at that particular day, when the Buddha came to the Dhamma hall, the bhikkhu were talking about this thing. And then the Buddha asked that, what was the discussion before me coming here? So then the bhikkhu told about this story about the elephant. And the Buddha uttered in the same way that is the way a mindfulness practitioner is also benefited. You don't need any external support or any external motivations. When one practices mindfulness, he or herself find energy within himself so that he can come out from the mud. Mud is all the kilesas that we experience in our day-to-day life. So I have seen this in the scientific research also, because all the time I'm trying to draw a parallelism between my research and what is in Sutta. So a few years ago, actually last year, we went to Maitriya Monastery with another colleague of mine, and we invited the venerables who are meditating there to spend 45 minutes meditation session. And during that session, we have observed the EEG patterns of these venerables. So there were 12 venerables who volunteered to participate in our study. So we recorded their EEG pattern for 45 minutes and then analyzed that data. And we found that at the beginning, we found the mind basically emanate various alpha, beta, these energy sectors. But at the end of the session, we found that they come to a stage where there are kind of which we call the alpha segment is high, as well as the delta segment is also very high. So it's quite unlikely that in one particular mind to appear both those two segments, because one is more prominent when you are awake and fully active. The other is prominent when you are fully calm. But then when we discussed this research with Most Venerable Dhammajiva Thero, he told the term that is called the momentary concentration, and which is actually the right word is mainly you are rest. It's called restful alertness. So you're fully alert, but you're fully rest as well. So that's the nature of the mind that actually move when you continue to practice mindfulness. So with that last story, I think it's time for me to conclude the session. So we have a few more minutes for questions and discussions. I hope today I dedicated more time for practice and talk about the research findings as well. I hope that's useful. So with that, let me open the floor, invite Professor Manori to open the floor for questions and discussions. Thank you very much.